This is Varinder and I welcome you to another session of Tech Talks. Today I will talk about standard operating procedures or SOPs, why we need them and how to make an effective SOP. The thing about SOP is that while we call them standard, it cannot be deemed to be universal and are necessarily limited to a specific equipment, process, activity or a facility, and hence there is a need to customize or address the unique equipment or circumstances of the facility or the process. Human error accounts for more than 80% of accidents and incidents in the workplace. The sad part is that mostly the cause is attributed to the individual rather than being considered as a collective failure of the entire team, including the management, to prevent the incidents. It is easy to ask who is responsible and as easy to find someone, but the question which is rarely asked is what could the organization have done to prevent the error in the first place. Many of us undermine the possibility of human error, and the reasons can be as simple as assuming that your team members are perfect superhumans who will perform exactly as they are supposed to, or that they are always highly motivated and emotionally balanced, or that they have been effectively trained to a high standard. In order to manage human error, we have to accept human error as normal and imminent at some stage or the other. SOPs or standard operating procedures can help to a large extent to mitigate the risk of human error by ensuring that the human factors are removed from the equation while performing routine tasks. This is not to say that we can ignore the training or keeping morale and motivation high, but just that the SOPs will take care of the isolated incidents of adverse individual circumstances as well as technical deviations. Standard operating procedures have been in existence for a long time, and no one will deny their effectiveness in managing human error, but still the development and implementation of SOPs leave a lot to be desired. So what are the pitfalls? For most facilities, the SOPs, if they do exist only on paper and are not used for actually carrying out tasks. Many times, SOPs are copied and pasted from some other facility and are not customized to the needs of the specific facility. Sometimes the SOPs are not exhaustive and do not cover all the steps or the information required. I have seen many so-called SOPs which are not really SOPs but guidelines or a process masquerading as SOP. Then there are times where the language itself leaves sufficient scope for misinterpretation. A standard operating procedure is required to give step-by-step instruction on how something needs to be done. Brevity and clarity is of essence. It should not be descriptive like training material or in a flowchart style. The template or the format for all SOPs should be the same in a facility. When I go about making SOPs, the first thing I do is to freeze the template. Of course, in consultation with the client, as to what information needs to be covered and where it is to be placed, whether PPEs are required to be included, whether tools are required to be included or not, provision for MSDS information is required or not, and thereafter the next step is to grill all staff, including technicians, supervisors, engineers, etc., about how they actually go about undertaking the activity. This ensures that all steps are covered and the likelihood of deviation occurring, and to some extent the skill level of the staff is also taken into consideration. During this activity, the discovery of formats, reports, checklists, documentation also takes place and then suitably added to the SOP. Thereafter, a risk assessment is carried out, which may lead to incorporation of additional steps to ensure safety and mitigate the risks. Finally, the SOP is drawn out from the information collected along with the inclusion of best practices. The next step is to test the efficacy of the SOP drawn out. This is usually done with a supervisor or engineer under controlled conditions, and any discrepancies can be ironed out. For example, I had included use of a spill kit in one of the SOPs only to realize later that the facility did not have a spill kit. In such cases, either the facility gets a spill kit, and if they are averse to the idea, then the step needs to be removed from the SOP. Remember, we need to be accurate at all times while developing the SOP. Lastly, if everything checks out, I carry out training of the staff on each SOP as to how to use the SOP and what each step means. There are some important things that you need to keep in mind while developing and subsequently implementing the SOPs. Involve the workforce, but do not leave it to them to make the SOP. Have a maker-checker process in place to get it right. Include only information which is useful. Do not add anything for purely academic purposes. SOPs are meant for undertaking tasks and not for training the staff. Standardize the format, style, language as much as possible to ensure ease of use and to avoid ambiguity. Understand the difference between a process, procedure and an instruction. A process defines what is to be done. A flow of activities or steps. A procedure defines how to undertake those steps, and a work instruction details how to correctly undertake each step. Do not leave anything to interpretation. Be clear about each step and the sequence. Take care of the language. Do not use ambiguous words or sentences. Words like shut down, switch off, stop and close may be similar but have entirely different connotations attached to them. Always identify the equipment or component in the step. Do not use phrases like if the voltage is correct. Instead, specify what the voltage should be. Or a phrase like open the breaker, specify which breaker. Verbs related to action like start, stop, energize, open, close, etc. can be and should be capitalized for emphasis. Use the manufacturer's literature and commissioning documents while developing the SOP. There is tons of useful and correct information in project handover documents. Use them wisely. If multiple activities are listed in a procedure, ensure they are segregated with headings so that the operator can easily find and jump to the activity if so required. This is particularly important if there is a response related step. For example, if yes, continue, else go to step XYZ. All SOPs should be formally promulgated and mandated for use. Each SOP should be traceable with identifiers, signature, dates and version control. Test the efficacy of each and every SOP and keep modifying till it is perfect. Train the staff on how to use the SOP and what each step means for them. Once the SOPs are ready, make them easily available for reference in hard or soft version. Finally, review SOPs regularly, at least once a year, and update as required. While everyone acknowledges the need to have SOPs, which is evident, not many go into making it really useful, and hence they are not effective. Having an SOP which is inaccurate or incomplete is as good as or as bad as not having one. So if you are convinced that SOPs can make a difference, start perfecting them today. Well, this is it from me for now. Until next time, this is Varinder signing off.